So anyway, can we please show the patch, Josh? I did a Need to Know vodcast a few weeks ago, and I talked about a guy whose relative worked at Area 51. And there were a lot of skeptics and debunkers at the time who said, oh, he didn't put the patch up that he referred to on the podcast. And the guy was so angry that, I'm using this, by the way, to talk about the dilemma of witnesses. Because the guy who has allowed me to talk about this was so angry that there was the usual spite, malice and bitchiness from so much of UFO Twitter that he said, oh, I'm going to allow you to run it. You can run it. This is a patch of a relative of a guy that approached me who has given evidence to AARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. And I'm only going to put it up for a little while, and then we'll put the Close Encounters thing down again, and we'll talk about it at the very end. But you're all given the duration of my speech to crack the secret behind the patch. Okay? There's a really interesting story there, and it's quite hilarious. But what it goes to is what this person, and very, very convincingly now, on the basis of information he's provided me privately, convinces me that this is a patch for a team at Area 51 that are involved in reverse engineering. And more importantly, the story that he told me that I related in my vodcast with Bryce Zabel, Need to Know, an exemplary vodcast if any of you are interested, was that this guy's relative had been working, I can actually tell you a little bit more about him. He had been working as a data configuration specialist at Area 51. He collected data from engineering tests and was in charge of storing it inside large, secure vaults. And he had access that others didn't have in that regard. And he told me that he was part of a group of 10 individuals who worked on terrestrial-based technology. But there were specific groups, he alleges, within EG&G, they are the former administrators of Area 51, that did certain things. And there was a senior EG&G engineer who his relative spoke with in 1997, who was in charge of reverse engineering what his relative told him was non-human technology. And he said that in the data room where all of this material was kept, there was a huge image on the wall of an egg-shaped craft that had been found fully intact, resting on the desert floor of a remote US location. He didn't his relative didn't tell him the exact location where it was found. In fact, his relative was very non-compliant. What happened, to be honest, was this was a young man who took an interest in the fact that his relative worked at Area 51 and one day wandered into the study and snapped a picture of this patch. And the reason why I'm sure that he's telling me the truth is because he also snapped a picture of a group of people. And without going into the details about that picture, it has more than convinced me as to his bona fides. But essentially, at the heart of all of this is there is a story behind this patch, and we will come to that later. You can take it away now, Josh.
I'm going to show you the evidence that the whole story is a complete and total fabrication, a falsehood. And by the way, any good or decent investigative journalist could have found the evidence and proof that this latest story, we're just going to call it Patchgate, because it's all based on a patch that Ross Coulthart said came from a secret Area 51 back engineering aliens program. No, it didn't. And we have the smoking gun evidence and proof that no, it didn't. And his only source for this was some guy who was telling stories about that patch on eBay to make money. And Ross Coulthart didn't do the least little bit of research into that patch. Instead, what Ross Coulthart did is make a monetized video repeating a completely and totally fake story. Some person took some umbrage, right, and objected to me saying that Ross Coulthart sold this fake story, because what they said was, well, he was just repeating a story somebody told him. Yes, he repeated a story somebody told him irresponsibly, that and the story was 100% fake, and we're going to prove that for you right now. Not only did he repeat that fake story, he repeated that fake story in monetized YouTube videos. He's made somewhere between $500 and $1,000 off of this latest completely and totally fake story, just in monetized ad revenue. And by the way, the story came crashing down probably, I think, yesterday. The monetized video of him selling this Patchgate completely and totally fake story of an alien crash retrieval and back engineering program at Area 51, the monetized video is still up on the Need to Know, his YouTube channel with this Bryce Zabel. A man of integrity, of honor, or ethics would say, oh, that story was fake. We can't leave that up on our YouTube channel and keep accepting ad revenue from a completely and totally fake story, and take it down. They haven't taken it down. They're going to leave that up and suck every dollar out of this fake story that they can. But not only did he profit from, and in my opinion, this is a form of fraud. That's just my opinion. What he did is a form of fraud. It's consumer fraud to me, to say, oh, this is a true story and put it on YouTube and accept all the money. And then it turns out, oh, it's a completely and totally fake story, and he didn't do 5 minutes of research to determine that it was a fake story. But it is what it is. But not only did he accept the ad revenue money for this completely and totally fake story, he accepted a speaking engagement, which I'm told was probably very lucrative for him. He accepted a speaking engagement in which he spoke about this completely and totally 100% fake story. Let me share my screen just to show you. This is from a recent public appearance of his where he was paid to be a speaker. And by the way, I'm just assuming that he was paid to be a speaker at this special event in Australia about UFOs and aliens. And he pitched this story. This is the story that he told of this alien crash retrieval program. And his only evidence, here's a quote from him. There's a really interesting story there, and it's quite hilarious. It goes to what this person very, very convincingly, on the basis of information he's provided me privately, convinces me this is a patch for a team at Area 51 that are involved in reverse engineering. That's the claim being made. Now, before we get into Ross Coulthart's wonderful retelling of the story, there's some instant red flags that this patch is not from an Area 51 reverse engineering program. I'm a computer science guy, so I instantly noticed the binary. And I went rushing to see what that binary means, what it translates as. And interestingly, one of the things that I found was that that binary code, you see the ones and zeros on the right-hand side of the patch, on the right-hand side of the lightning bolt? Well, that binary number is actually from a Star Trek The Next Generation episode. And interestingly, it's one of my favorites. It's the one where the Binars take control of the Starship Enterprise because they have to save their home planet's primary computer core. And they were afraid that the Enterprise and crew would say no. So they sort of to the best of my recollection, they knocked everybody out and they took over the Star Trek Enterprise, and the Enterprise had to go and get back into their computer system and take control of their ship back. And the Binars, which is a race of aliens, they were sort of knocked out while their computer system on their home world was down and rebooting. Here's just a quick clip from that.
They're successful.
This is them taking control of the ship. back from the
Their
binars.
system started up. A resident diagnostic program is running. The system is absolutely incredible.
And there's the binars. And they're waking back up. So isn't that interesting that this is supposed to be a patch about an alien reverse engineering program at Area 51, and the binary on the patch is the title of a Star Trek episode. Isn't that great? That could have been Ross Coulthart's first red flag that this story was fake. But that didn't stop Ross Coulthart from selling this completely and totally fake Patchgate story. He doubles down, he triples down. He still has not, to the best of my knowledge, he hasn't tweeted, "I'm sorry, that story was false." He hasn't taken the monetized video down. He's still collecting money for this 100% completely and totally fake story. But before we show you the proof that this is indeed a completely and totally fake story, let's share with you Ross Coulthart's story that he was selling here about a reverse engineering alien program at Area 51. And his only evidence is a patch that was sold on eBay. And wait till we get into that and show you the slimy character behind the sale of this so-called top secret Area 51 patch.
And explain them. I will ask the questions along with you, Ross. So I say let's get to it.
Now, Bryce, this might be a good segue for me to tell you about somebody who contacted me just in this past week.
By the way, fair use.
They're not one of my legacy program sources. They're not one of the first-hand witnesses, but they are.
By the way, I just want to say that Ross Coulthart and Bryce's, or is it Bryce or Bruce? I always forget. Their show is called Need to Know. And what you need to know is they're garbage peddlers. That's what you need to know about Need to Know. They sell fake stories. They sell garbage. That's what they do over at Need to Know. You need to know that Need to Know are garbage peddlers. All right, let's get into this fantastical fairy tale that Ross is going to tell everybody.
Somebody who's contacted Arrow, and with their permission, I'm allowed to talk about the fact that they've approached Arrow, and they told me that they've given a 45-minute telephone interview to Arrow about...
Did he call Arrow and verify that this person actually gave a 45-minute phone call to Arrow? How would you even do that? Their phone number is not really like out there and listed, is it? I don't know. Seems suspicious already. So this person testified to Arrow about what they knew about the aliens.
What they know. And in all honesty, they've approached with some really interesting information, which I'd love to...
Really interesting information, all of which just happens to be completely and totally fake.
No, if we do get the opportunity to talk to Dr. Kirkpatrick, how have they investigated what this person has told them?
Well, Arrow won't need to investigate it because, and by the way, Ross Coulthart was making fun of these silly debunkers on the internet who said that that patch wasn't what he said it was. And it looks like the silly debunkers nailed that patch to the exact program that it came from 100%. And it is not, I repeat, it is not from an Area 51 crash retrieval or back engineering alien technology program. That much is certain. So Ross Coulthart making fun of these silly internet debunkers, they did the work that he couldn't or would not do.
So this is a guy who knew somebody who worked for a major defense contractor.
And by the way, this is just one version of the story that he used to try to sell the patch. There's other versions of the story that he used to try to sell this patch on eBay. And by the way, a quick reverse Google image search, Ross Coulthart could have found those eBay listings in 30 seconds flat and saw that the very same seller used multiple different stories trying to sell that patch. That would be your second red flag that this story is completely and totally fake. But Ross didn't do that, because why should you let something like facts, evidence, and history of the so-called information source get in the way of a really good alien fairy tale that you can make thousands of dollars with? Because that's apparently what Ross did. He made thousands of dollars, allegedly, from public speaking fees, and this monetized YouTube video, which is still up on the Need to Know YouTube channel. They're still accepting ad revenue for this now busted, completely and totally fake story.
And had a very high DOD security clearance. This person had a great uncle who passed away last year of a heart attack in his sleep at age 75.
And again, this is just one version of the story that this person who was selling this so-called top secret patch on eBay was using to try to make money.
Their great uncle served in the US Air Force for 28 years at E8 level, and then was hired to work with EG&G. And worked at Area 51 Groom Lake from 1997 to 2014.
Again, there's no evidence, just a story. Somebody told him.
Whatever that is. Before he passed away, this relative, this great uncle, confided to my source very important information to the individual that has contacted me. It was shared that the great uncle had a conversation with a senior engineer when he first arrived in 1997, whose EG&G group was tasked with trying to reverse engineer an object that was recovered and brought to Area 51 in the 1980s by some CIA folk.
Oh, so the CIA brought some alien technology to Area 51, and this guy selling the patch on eBay said that his uncle talked to somebody else. So we've got like third-hand witness account. This guy who sold the patch on eBay's uncle talked to somebody else who told him that story. So this is a game of telephone, first of all, because Ross Coulthart is now repeating a third-hand story. The first-hand witness was the guy who knew about this program, who talked to the great uncle, and the great uncle told the story to the guy selling the patch, who then told the story to Ross Coulthart. So what we're getting is actually a third or fourth-hand account of this story. You see the problems already? That could be another red flag. This is a fourth-hand account of a story about alien back engineering at Area 51.
Shortly after that conversation, the senior engineer retired. Their great uncle also saw an up-close, crystal-clear photograph of the same exact object attached to the wall of a secure vaulted data storage room at Area 51 sometime after.
Oh, so the guy selling the patch's uncle saw a picture. Okay.
The great uncle stated it was absolute proof of a non-human craft, but that the public would probably never get to see that photograph.
Oh, it was absolute proof. He saw absolute proof, but the public wouldn't get to see that photograph. Maybe because that photograph doesn't exist, Ross Coulthart? Can you show us the photograph? Of course not. But I'm going to tell you a third-hand account of a story about a guy who saw a photograph, right?
He said, quote, the object was egg-shaped, about the size of an SUV, silverish grey in colour, smooth, seamless, no control surfaces or propulsion.
Yeah, where have we heard that before? No control surfaces. It was smooth, no rivets, right? That's pretty much Bob Lazar's description of some of the so-called alien craft at Area 51. I don't think it's a coincidence that those accounts sound so similar.
Visible, no writing, no symbols of any kind. A few men could pick it up, yet it could not be cut open and X-rays couldn't penetrate it. The best engineers at EG&G tried to figure out how to activate it and what its power source was to no avail. They finally came to
they couldn't figure out the alien egg.
The conclusion, it was a probe craft sent here from another planet.
Okay, so it was a probe craft sent here from another planet. Even though they couldn't figure out the power source or how to activate it or how to cut it open, they knew it was a probe sent here from another planet somehow. Come on, it's getting deep in here.
This anonymous individual is willing to testify under oath before Congress. He also took a smartphone image of his great uncle's EG&G engineering group and their insignia patch, and he's authorized me to allow us to show that patch, which I'll send you after this chat, and you can.
Yeah, and I don't know why they didn't show the patch in this. I don't
cut it in, my friend.
You can cut it in, but they didn't show the patch. Do you know why? Because they did not want people to figure out that the patch is not what Ross Coulthart is purporting it to be or reporting it to be. Because a lot of people don't know this, but there are Area 51 experts out there, people who worked there for decades, people who had very high clearances and could identify what that patch actually was, or verify that it really was from an Area 51 crash retrieval and back engineering program. But they didn't show the patch, I think, until Ross did the public appearance where he took money to retell this same fake story.
Vigil has also interviewed with Arrow and has signed and dated an official memorandum of record. And he's also spoken with Tim
I agree.
Burchett as well, the individual. Now, this is a really interesting example of somebody who's come forward to Arrow with information.
With false information.
I just wonder, when Dr. Kirkpatrick says that there's no credible evidence of extraterrestrial visitation of planet Earth, is he aware of this memo? Is he aware of this conversation that this person reports that he's already had?
Yeah, and see, Ross Coulthart doesn't like Sean Kirkpatrick because he said that he has been investigating and has found no evidence of alien technology or alien back engineering programs, legacy or otherwise. So Ross Coulthart likes to, he's using this fake story to try to gotcha Kirkpatrick of Arrow. Look, he's lying because we have this witness who said that he talked to Arrow and his uncle worked for an alien back engineering. Bullshit. It's all fake. And his only evidence is some guy selling a so-called top secret patch on eBay, the binary code of which is a Star Trek episode. That could be a red flag the story's fake. But he's trying to gotcha the guy like, oh, he's lying about the alien technology, Kirkpatrick is. This story is completely and totally fake. Maybe Kirkpatrick is a smart and educated man, and like me, he figured out what that patch really is, right?
With people from Arrow, is he saying to Congress that there is no information because this person's information, of course, is hearsay? But you could very quickly check this information by approaching the direct source and moreover checking the bona fides of the great uncle.
Did he check the bona fides of the great uncle? Did he verify that this guy selling a patch on eBay's uncle actually worked at Area 51, or did he just accept the story that he was told and run with it? You know, this is the difference between a real investigative journalist and a garbage peddler. A real investigative journalist, the first thing they would have done is ask for the uncle's name and did a complete and total military and career background check on him and found out if it's even plausible that he indeed worked at Area 51.
So I guess I'd just like to know more. I mean, it raises more questions than it answers. I've had a few of these kind of messages from people who are frustrated that Arrow's boss is saying one thing when they say they have presented it.
Yeah, wackadoos are saying, we have proof of alien technology, and it's a patch that I was selling on eBay, right? And by the way, by the time Ross got this story, the guy already sold the patch on eBay. But this entire story, friends, completely and totally falls apart based on that patch. And we're going to get into the evidence and the proof of that. So again, his only evidence is some guy told me, you know. Also, it's important to point out that the person that was selling this had multiple stories about where the patch came from, and we're going to get into it. Charlie Weiser, I have to say, friend of the show, thank you, Charlie Weiser, for doing what you do, did an excellent breakdown of this story, which we're going to share for you. And before anybody accuses me, this is Charlie Weiser's thread, and Charlie Weiser culled the information from Metabunk and various other internet sources and just made it digestible in a YouTube thread. Thanks to Charlie Weiser and all who contributed to busting this complete and totally fake story. From Ross Coulthart's podcast, August 4th, where he talks about the patch, his source, presumably Lockheed Skunk 117 on eBay, Bill's Mafia 716Y on Twitter, snuck a photo of his great uncle's patch before he died last year. and last week gave it to Coulthart to show us. That was one version of the story. His uncle was sleeping and he took a picture of the patch. This great uncle never saw the egg-shaped craft, only a photo of it, shown to him by another engineer on the program in 1997 who promptly retired. The egg was featureless and was never penetrated, was nevertheless concluded that it had to be an ET probe. Coulthart's source, the great-nephew, showed him both the secretly taken photo of the patch, which he presented at Saturday's talk. Remember, he got paid to give a talk about this, and it's a completely fake story, and one of the EG&G folk themselves. Coulthart does not specify that his source actually had multiple different photos of the patch from all the times he tried to sell it on eBay. Why bother with the story of secretly taking a photo? It's irrelevant. He secretly took the photo, but yet there's multiple versions of the photos of this thing on eBay on the different sales listings where he's trying to sell this patch. By the way, he got a good buck for it. I think he got $550. It seems that the patch eventually sold in February 2023 for $550. Yes, $550. Most of it was probably for the Michael Jordan autograph stub that came with it. The buyer left this review and also bought Area 51 coins, so we know that the patch was sold for $550. The description of one of several different listings for the patch, it varied slightly each time. In this one, the seller claims to be the engineer who worked for the program. In other listings, he says it belonged to a family member. So here's the original eBay listing, or one of them. There's multiple ones. And again, the story keeps changing every time this guy's trying to sell it on eBay. In one version, it was his uncle's patch. In another version, it was his patch. And here's the listing. For sale is one patch that was specifically designed, produced, and handed out to the members of a small, top-secret EG&G engineering group inside Area 51 in the early 2000s. I was part of that group. Each member was given one patch. This patch is super rare. I have never seen another one offered anywhere else before it, so it's special because it was actually inside Area 51 at one time. Ooh, it's rare. That makes it more valuable and you can get more money for it, right? It makes it the ultimate Area 51 item you will ever find. This patch is 100% authentic and original, not a reproduction or a novelty patch. It's in great condition for being almost 20 years old. See the pictures I have, 100% positive eBay feedback. Buy with complete confidence. Free FedEx shipping with signature required. No returns. Message me with any questions you might have. And here, the seller seems to confirm that he told Coulthart the picture he gave him was the one he sneakily took when his uncle was sleeping. This part of the story is clearly fabricated. He had at least 6 pictures from 3 photo shoots plus 2 of the reverse. If someone lies about part of their story when they didn't have to, if the story were true, then the story is false. All the info Ross Coulthart got from this source about the egg-shaped craft is therefore also fabricated. The eBay review was left by the buyer. Sure. So there's that. And again, in another eBay listing, he didn't say I was part of the group. He said my uncle was part of the group. So it's interesting that the seller of the patch's story kept changing, and Ross Coulthart could have found all this out, but he was too much in a rush to slam and disparage and slander Kirkpatrick for being a liar about not having any evidence of alien technology, and too quick to jump on to a monetized YouTube video so he could make money retelling this completely and totally fake story. The great uncle was told about the egg-shaped craft by a senior engineer when he started at Area 51, then allegedly saw a photo of it on the wall in a data storage room. Oliver BF chimes in, but what a load of crap just for a patch bought on eBay. Who believes this crap anymore? You've got time to waste. It's interesting. Can Ross Coulthart's ego survive a bout of self-reflection on why he promoted a patch as belonging to an alien UFO reverse engineering program just because his source's great uncle colleague spun a yarn? And Charlie Weiser chimes in that I'm profiling Coulthart's latest blunder, and a long line of blunders starts in a few minutes. Thank you for doing that, Charlie Weiser. And thank you for all that you do, because we truly appreciate people actually looking for the link. 1 second here. All right, and here's how we know that the story is completely and totally fake. This guy first tells Ross Coulthart, I took a picture while my uncle was sleeping. He's taken 4 different pictures of this same patch while he was trying to sell it on eBay. Worthporse cribbed the 5 eBay ads using the 4 photos plus 1 broken unknown image, so they're archived. None of the ads sold. Yeah. Rare historical EG&G Area 51 Groom Lake employee only engineering patch, and he was trying to get $1,000. EG&G engineering UFO military super rare patch. Groom Lake EG&G employees only authentic and super rare patch. There's all these different. This guy was just trying to make money. He was just trying to make money selling this thing on eBay. It's very, very clear. So how do we know that this is that this patch is not what Ross Coulthart or his idiot source told him it was? Well, there are some clues. UFT8 is an output error symbol. There is one symbol that is for a radar screen. Blue star is used to denote United States Air Force friendly forces. So why would an alien crash retrieval program denote United States Air Force friendly forces? The lightning bolt is for electronic intel, and it's commonly used. And these waves that you see on the left-hand side of the patch are directional radiation antenna signal symbols. This thing that they said was an egg-shaped alien craft was actually used to represent an aluminum radar calibration sphere. Measure and analyze RCS signatures. Protect United States Air Force assets. So the patch is actually from Electronic Warfare and Radar Cross-Section Test Site, Groom Lake. And so it is from Area 51, but it has nothing to do with aliens. It's from an Electronic Warfare and Radar Cross-Section Test Site. That's exactly where it's from. Has nothing to do with aliens, has nothing to do with alien crash retrieval programs, has nothing to do with an egg-shaped alien space probe, as Ross Coulthart sold this story. The entire story rested on this patch. And by the way, all of these facts are things that Ross Coulthart could have learned before he ran to the internet to sell an alien story, and he did not do that. And there is further confirmation from Area 51 experts that this explanation for what that patch is 100% accurate. It came from Electronic Warfare and Radar Group off of Area 51. Had nothing to do with aliens, nothing to do with back engineering, nothing to do with crash retrieval programs. It had to do with radar, essentially. And we're going to share more proof of that. So just bear with me. Share this tab. And this is from Duke from the Metabunk forum. You know, those pesky debunkers that keep ruining the money being made by alien story grifters like Ross Coulthart. And Duke says, okay, now I feel comfortable posting this. The link below is to a thread about the subject patch I stated on the forum, of which I am the moderator, of Dreamland Resort. For those unfamiliar with the site, it's a website devoted to Area 51 and black aircraft programs. Many of the posters are former Area 51 employees and or members, me included, members of Pioneers of Stealth. The site is owned by Jorg Arnoux, a true gentleman I am proud to call my friend. Jorg has devoted much of his life to the study of black programs. Jorg lives in Rachel, Nevada, near Area 51. One of the most prominent members of their staff is Peter Merlin. That's a name that may be familiar with you. He is an Area 51 expert. And by the way, Ross Coulthart, if he was unsure of something, could have sought out an Area 51 expert and asked him about the patch. He didn't do that. One of the members of the DLR staff is Peter Merlin. Peter is a highly respected aviation historian and an Area 51 historian, known for his extensive knowledge of books and articles about Area 51 and classified programs. Peter Merlin would be accepted into a court of law as an expert on aviation history and Area 51 history. Peter Merlin has authored numerous books and articles on aerospace history and technology, as well as volumes on Area 51 and the Nevada test site for Arcadia Publishing. He has appeared in documentary programs for the History Channel, Discovery, National Geographic, and others. And by the way, I instantly recognized his name. I'm something of an aviation nerd myself. I have some of his stuff. In the DLR link below, please see Peter and others' responses to my initial request for info on this patch. If Peter says if Peter says this is the background on the patch, I take that to the bank. There are obviously others who responded, but I know and trust Peter. I personally consider this case closed, at least with respect to Coulthart's claims of the patch representing a UFO crash retrieval reverse engineering program. So this is from aviation historian and Area 51 expert Peter Merlin. Sorry. He says, and I quote, "I have known about this patch for several years after first encountering it as an EG&G radar patch from the test site. Of course, EG&G has since become URS, now AECOM, but I digress. The main point is that it is from the EWRCS range, a radar range at Groom. Yes, the silver ball on the emblem represents one of the aluminum calibration spheres. The binary code 11001001 has been driving me crazy though. There are so many possible conversions, and it was even the title of a Star Trek The Next Generation episode. I do think the black rhombus with the white question mark is the very best explanation so far. It fits well with other test site iconography." Peter Merlin warns, "It's wise never to jump to conclusions when analyzing organizational patches and similar items. A lot of completely unrelated insignia share the same design elements: lightning bolts, stars of certain colors, generic aerodynamic shapes, etc. Names such as Mad Hatters or Dark Knights, and mottos, Latin or otherwise. A lot of people jump right on something that is labeled DET3 without checking to verify that the parent organization as FTC, now AFTC, a grouping of 6 stars, doesn't always denote Area 51. Sometimes this symbolism is obvious to the point of unbelievability, and other times it may be entirely cryptic." And so this metabunk poster, Duke, says, "I want to thank Jorg for his help and permission to cross-pollinate the 2 sites. Mentioning UFO, UAPs on DLR is highly frowned on. But after an hour or so on the phone last night, we worked it out. He could not have been more accommodating. My thanks as well to the DLR members who took the time to offer up their thoughts, and especially to Peter Merlin. Thanks to NorCal Dave for his patience and advice as I struggled with how best to provide this information in a somewhat different source for metabunk." So there we have it. On the record, Area 51 expert takes one look at the patch and says, that doesn't have anything to do with the alien or crash retrieval program. It's from a radar test site. And interestingly, we do have some information on what that site actually does. And let me see if we can't get that to share with you as well. It's interesting. Actually, what they do is interesting. One second here. Ooh, 1 second. I'm sorry. Yeah, so we're calling this fake story Patchgate. Okay. And we have a post from the same poster, Duke, giving a little more information about what that area at Area 51, what that patch is really all about. Apparently, exploitation of Russian aircraft at Area 51 has apparently continued and includes a well-documented case of an Su-27 flanker being test flown against the United States Air Force F-16 back in 2016. Yes, the Daily Mirror isn't the most credible source, but I chose it because of the number and quantity of those photos in the article. The flanker is rumored to have been flying from Groom Lake for nearly 20 years, but no one ever managed a definitive photograph to prove it does exist. The sequence of photos is the first proof that the Americans are flying this aircraft, which is the premier air defense fighter in use with the Russian and Chinese air forces. So isn't it interesting that apparently the United States government is in possession of Russian fighters and Russian aircraft, and what this patch is related to is a group that would shoot radar at these Russian fighters being test flown so that we could see the radar signatures and exploit their weaknesses when it comes to radar and detection. That's what this whole patch and program was about. It had nothing to do with alien technology, zero. Had nothing to do with alien crash retrieval programs, zero. It had nothing to do with what Ross Coulthart or his shitty source said it did. And that's just a fact. You know, Ross Coulthart can say whatever he's going to say. At the very, even if you give him the, you know, total benefit of the doubt, what you're left with is that Ross Coulthart is completely and totally lazy as a journalist and a researcher. He's either lazy or he knew that this wasn't what he said it was, but he needed a new story to sell. Because the Grush money's drying up already, because that house of cards is falling down without evidence to hold it up. Patchgate. The patch is from Electronic Warfare and Radar Cross-Section Test Site, Groom Lake, Area 51. And one of the activities that this group would do, remember it says measure, analyze, and protect. And the blue star is for United States Air Force Friendly Forces. They want to help the United States Air Force Friendly Forces. And how do they do that? They measure, analyze, and protect. So they have these Russian and some say even Chinese aircraft in the possession of the United States government through whatever means they got them, and they take them to Area 51. They're test flown, and this group would measure, analyze, and protect by testing radar systems on enemy aircraft. That, my friends, is exactly what this patch was about and the group related to it about. Ross Coulthart got the story completely and totally 100% wrong. This is not the first time Ross Coulthart has done sloppy, lazy vetting of sources, and I don't believe it'll be the last time. This is not the first time that Ross Coulthart has been caught selling a completely and totally fake story, and I don't believe it'll be the last time.